There has been a lot of movement in the Pokemon singles market, especially at the top. We've seen some changes with who was the #1 spot. We've seen some movement from 1 to 5 as well. And we've seen some cards even creep up to those top spots that weren't there before. Today, we're going to be looking at the top 10 cards from the Scarlet and Violet era and seeing where they lie, how much they cost in a PSA 10, and if they are worth grabbing raw or even getting sent to get graded. And for the order that we're going to be going in, we're going to be using the TCG player price, and we will be using Poké Data to look at the prices of these cards as it showcases both the TCG player price as well as PSA 10, 9, and a bunch of other data points. Let's dive in. Taking the number 10th spot is Raging Bolt from Temporal Forces. This is a card that has lingered around that top 10 area, dropped out, and then came back in, and is now currently at $95.80. I think this is the only card that's going to be under $100 in value in comparison to the other cards. And this one over here has a playability factor, and that's what's really kept it up there. I'm going to be quite honest with all of you guys. It's not my favorite card. I'm not a big fan of majority of the cards from Temporal Forces. This one over here also follows that same pattern. It's kind of whatever. I mean, it could also be because of the Pokemon. I'm not a big fan of Raging Bolt myself. Going for $95.80. A PSA 10 is worth $309.94. We could see here that the PSA 10 price also went down. It was around $255, dropped to around the $170 mark, and now has doubled in price almost at around that $308. A lot of these cards are moving up. I want to be honest with all of you guys. This is one card that I would probably pass on. And the reason why is that once it's out of rotation, once the playability is out of it, it's going to drop in value. It may hold a little bit of value because at the end of the day, this is the special illustration rare, but I don't think it's worth $309. I don't think it's worth even $100. I think this is one card that I would pass on, even though it is in the top 10. There's a reason why it's in the number 10 spot. At one point, I think it will get knocked out of the number 10 spot. That's just my opinion on this one. For those of you who like Raging Bolt, I don't mean to put it down. It's just not my favorite Pokemon card, and it's just not my favorite Pokemon. And I don't think that this one over here is going to do much in the future. At one point it will drop. So Raging Bolt taking the number 10 spot. My honest recommendation on this one, I would pass. Taking the number 9 spot is Milotic EX from Surging Sparks, a beautiful card, one of many cards from Surging Sparks that we're going to see in this top 10 list, and currently going for $133 as per the TCG player price. From a PSA 10 perspective, $485. So this is an interesting one. The population is 150 on it. It's only been out for a couple of months now. But in all honesty, this is one, if you do have it, if you've already pulled it, and you take your measurements and find that this one actually has the ability to get a PSA 10, I would definitely send it out. This is one that I vote a yes to. PSA 10 worth almost $500. I think it will continue to grow. Surging Sparks is looking like the Evolving Skies of the era. And I know some of you will say that, oh, Evolving Skies was not Evolving Skies when it first came out. So you know what? Here it is. I'm saying it. Surging Sparks, even better. I think this card will do well and continue to do well. And it's held its price. It's held its $100, $130 mark. It's already been out for a couple months. Again, we haven't seen it in reprints or restocks, and that's also affecting it. But in reality, pulling a special illustration rare, or a specific special illustration rare that is, it is 1 in almost 1,000, and that's crazy to get this card. Honestly, I'm going to be real honest with you guys. I've opened up quite a few booster boxes. I've opened up quite a few ETBs and a bunch of blister packs, and I've only pulled 2 special illustration rares. So in all honesty, it is very difficult to pull. At this point, if you haven't gotten these cards, it's actually better to buy them. Focusing on this card again, I think this is a great one to pick up at $133. I don't see it going down much further, and even if it does dip a little bit, it will creep its way back up. Up to you whether you have the funds for it. If you can find a PSA 10 as well and send it out, that's a great one as well to send out. Milotic EX taking the number 9 spot in the top 10 of the Scarlet and Violet era. Next up is Pikachu, also from Surging Sparks, the secret rare, that is, the secret rare version, the gold card Pikachu. And this one over here is going for $132.71. So only about 30 or 40 cents more than the Milotic that we just talked about. But this one over here in a PSA 10 also going for $510, up there. It's really up there in price. Pikachu really making movements in the Surging Sparks area. In fact, all the Pikachus are doing really well in this set, and we're going to see a number of them come up today. And Pikachu over here, it did start off at about 1.2K. I think it's a little bit insane of a price for this card. And of course, we've seen it gone down to about less than half of the price of what it was before. This one over here, I would be cautious with. I don't think it's worth that much. I think there's a bit of hype about this Pikachu right now. I think this special illustration rare Pikachu deserves that hype a little bit, but this one over here, I think it's a no-go for me. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I think I would pass on this Pikachu. If you don't have it in your collection and you're trying to master your set, I would even consider holding off a little bit, because I think this will drop out of the top 10 at one point. You don't usually see gold cards stick around too much in the top 10. Usually they're there when they have some playability or there's some hype around it. I think this one will drop. I would really just watch out for this one and kind of hold off. You are seeing it go down in price as well. We've seen it again, as I mentioned, go down from 1.2K, going down to 987, go down to 800, and then now we've gone down to $510, 481, and we're even actually at $481. It's not even at 509, I should say. So we're already really going down in price here from that perspective. Even with the raw copy at the beginning was around 300, and we've seen it drop to around that $100-ish mark. So this one over here, currently in the 8th position, I would honestly pass on it for now, and we'll see what happens in the future to grab this one. Taking the number 7 spot is Charizard from Paldean Fates, a beautiful card. Actually, my favorite Charizard from the series so far, from the Scarlet and Violet era, that is. More so than the 151 Charizard. I know people are going to go crazy about that, but it's just my honest opinion. I like it more. And this one currently going for $160.51 as per TCG Player. A PSA 10 only pulling $400. It's not as pricey as the other ones, that's for sure. And this is one that I would probably grab in a raw copy. I don't know if I'd get it graded myself. It's a difficult one to say, because in all honesty, as the price of the PSA 10 goes up, it also costs more to get graded. So once a card, for example, reaches 500 plus, the amount of money you have to pay to actually get it graded also increases. So rather than paying $15, I believe you enter a new tier, which is around that $35 or $40. And once you get over that like 800 or 900 or even above that $500 plus mark, I think it even goes higher. At one point, it was around that $100 mark, between 500 and 1,000, depending on what kind of membership you have and who you're going with as well, that is. So there is that one asterisk I want to add. It's maybe not a bad time to get graded in a PSA 10 because the value of it is a little bit lower. But this is one that I'm in between getting graded, but definitely would grab in a raw copy, because Paldean Fates is also getting a little bit older. Charizard is currently the number 2 card. It was the number 1 card from this set. This one over here, beautiful artwork, and it's definitely worth grabbing. Charizard from Paldean Fates takes the number 7 spot in the top 10 of Scarlet and Violet era. And this one is an interesting one, because Magikarp was hanging around the top 3 for quite some time, and now has dropped all the way to the number 6 card. Magikarp takes the number 6 spot on TCG Player, going for $202.78. However, huge asterisk, a PSA 10 for this Magikarp is going for $1,144. So if we were to be taking the PSA 10 into consideration, either number 1 or number 2, and it's just the numbers are what it is. And for this video, we are focusing on the TCG Player price. So the raw copy is currently going for $202 on TCG Player, ranking it in the number 6 card. Great card from Paldea Evolved, the number 1 card for a long time, surpassed Iona a while ago, and is ahead of the other cards by almost $150, $160, and continuing to stay there. This one also grew in value over the course of the last 6 months, around that $100, $130 mark, and now we're at that $200 mark, so almost doubling in price. A beautiful card. If you don't have this card yet and you haven't pulled it, I would highly consider looking for a raw copy. And if you can get a raw copy for $200 and it's in that shape of a PSA 10, which I highly doubt someone will sell to you for, it would be definitely worth grabbing. If you have your Magikarp and it is a beautiful PSA 10 based on your measurements, I would send this one out, because I mean, we're talking about 5 times the value from a $200 card to a $1,100 or almost $1,200 card. That's insane. So Magikarp currently takes the number 6 spot. It's hard to say that it's in the 6th spot, but it is what it is. And Sunzard, Charizard EX from Pokemon 151, is currently in the number 5 position at $205, just a couple of dollars more than the Magikarp. This one over here in a PSA 10 is only going for $614. I know I'm saying only, because I'm saying that because the Magikarp is actually worth double almost in value from a PSA 10 perspective. PSA 9, not bad. It's almost worth the same thing. But again, we're looking at the PSA 10 prices here, and the Charizard over here, decent card. Not my my favorite one, a lot of people's favorite cards. There's almost 10,000, there's over 10,000 cards that are in a PSA 10 from this Charizard. Pokemon 151, of course, doing really well. Blooming Waters just came out. Technically releases in February 7th, but a lot of places already had it, such as Costco. This one for sure will continue to grow. It's the #1 card by a mile from Pokemon 151. And it's Charizard, and Charizard just continues to grow in value as it usually does, for the most part at least. So Charizard takes the #5 spot from the Scarlet and Violet era currently. And in the #4 spot is another card from Surging Sparks. It is Latias, currently at $252. PSA 10 is going for $764, pretty up there as well in price. This one is a nice card. I'm not going to deny it. It's one of the nicer cards that I've seen from Surging Sparks. It's unfortunate that the Latios is not worth this much, but at the end of the day, that one is just an illustration rare. At the beginning, a PSA 10 was going for about $2 grand, which is a bit insane. So again, it's leveled out a little bit, and I still think it's up there in price, but really depends here, honestly. With Surging Sparks is going to have more prints. Yes, we'll see a bit of a drop, but I don't see how much of a drop. $252 is up there in price. It's hard to pull. It's one of the favorite cards up there. This one as well as Pikachu, that is. And honestly, if you can get it for $250 and it isn't a PSA 10 quality, I think I'd grab it at this point as well. PSA 10, $764. And I'm not going to go over the pull rates and all those fun stuff. We already know what's going on with Surging Sparks. This one over here, definitely a great card, and it deserves to be in the top 4. And it is the #4 card from the Scarlet and Violet era currently. And now we've moved into the top 3, and Mew still hanging out in there at $264, so just a few dollars more than the Latias. A PSA 10 pulling about $655, so it's actually less in a PSA 10 than the Latias is, but still a great card to get graded. That is, it has gone down a little bit from its high. It was around that $300-ish mark around December, and it's dropped about $40 or $50 now. So this one over here, beautiful card. Sealed product is getting really expensive. I mean, from a Canadian perspective, if you want to get a Paldean Fates ETB, that is, because there is no booster box, you're going to be paying more than $100. You're going to get like 9 or 10 packs. It's not worth it. Honestly, I'd buy this card outright, and I think it will stick around the top 5. I don't know if it will stay in the top 3, but I think it will stay in the top 5. Mew, great card. Paldean Fates, great set. Those two, Mew and Charizard, and I think Gardevoir as well. It's not going to be in the top 10, but maybe at one point it will kind of jack up its price a little bit. But Mew and Charizard, great cards from Paldean Fates, and this one over here, definite pickup for me. And taking the #2 spot is Greninja EX. I have a smile on my face when I'm saying that, because Greninja EX held the #1 spot for quite some time until that Pikachu card came out from Surging Sparks. And yes, I killed it. Pikachu is going to be the #1 card, but I think we all kind of knew that was going to happen. Going for $318, so still holding a relatively high value. The only 2 cards actually that are above that $300 mark currently, and a PSA 10 bringing home a $724 price ticket, which is great. This is a beautiful card. Honestly, Twilight Masquerade, a very good set, and it deserves to have some banger cards. And unfortunately, the only card from Twilight Masquerade making the top 10 is Greninja EX, but definitely deserving a spot in there. This one over here, difficult to pull as well. For me, this one is a bit of a difficult one to call, because it's still kind of early in the game, and it's $318. I still kind of go for it, in my honest opinion, to try to pull it, because you can still pick up Twilight Masquerade booster packs or blister packs for a relatively decent price. Booster boxes have gone up a bit in price, so that might be not the best route to take, but the blister packs still at a decent price that you can pick up in most places, that is. But this one over here, $318, it's a toss-up. You can go both ways with it. I'm saying try to rip it. Some people will say buy it. Some people will just say hold off. It might drop in price. We'll see what happens with Twilight Masquerade. If it has a reprint or a restock, that is, we will see the price of this drop a little bit. Really and truly, it looks like the popularity of this Pokemon and this card, as well as the pull rates, is what's keeping it up there in the top 2. Greninja, $318, currently the #2 card from the entirety of Scarlet and Violet era currently. Last but not least is Pikachu from Surging Sparks, going for $472.34. #1 by a mile, and looks like it's going to stay there for quite some time. We'll see what movement it will have once there are some more Surging Sparks products available. We'll also see what happens when some of the newer sets, such as the Rocket set, comes out. Just to look at the price points here, 2.8K, that's what it was going for a PSA 10 at the beginning. It has gone down substantially. We're looking around $1,200, settling down a little bit at the end of the day. $1,294 from this perspective, actually down to about $1,190. And even the raw copy started off at around $360, and then we climbed up to $460. TCG player, I think at one point even was almost at $500. Oh no, yeah, there we go. We were around that $500 mark here, and then we kind of dipped down now to that $472 mark from a TCG player perspective, that is. So Pikachu EX, all honesty, it's a hard one to call because it's still relatively new. It's a card that I would watch at this point to see what happens. Will it grow? I think it will. But Surging Sparks has a lot of cards that are above that $100 mark, and it looks like, as I mentioned before, having those Evolving Skies kind of feel to it, the set that has the majority of the cards in the top 10. And Pikachu is in there as well. So this one's a toss-up. You know, you can go either way with it. You can watch it, you can buy it, or you can try to pull it. The only thing is, when you're trying to pull it, sealed product is getting really expensive. You're looking at over $300 Canadian for a booster box of this bad boy, and I mean, like, the card is worth $472. It's like 2 booster boxes, like 1.5 booster box, I should say. So $472, it's up there in price. If you really want this card, I'd honestly take another shot maybe, and then I'd just buy it because it's getting really pricey. PSA 10, 1,294. The one I pulled, unfortunately, is off-center, so it would not get a PSA 10. It would get a PSA 9, which is worth less than what the raw copy is at $472, unfortunately. And this is one of the things I wanted to highlight for those of you who were talking about PSA 9s and what's wrong with them. Well, this is the prime reason here. You know, PSA 9 is actually worth less than what a raw copy is, unfortunately. And it's not always the case that it's going to be like that, and I'm not happy about it, to be honest with all of you guys who are watching this and continue to watch my videos. I'm not happy about seeing PSA 9s at this. They should be worth more than that. But this is what the data shows, and unfortunately PSA 10 is way more expensive than a PSA 9. So Pikachu from Surging Sparks takes the #1 spot by a mile and currently holds that spot, and we'll see how long it will hold that spot. So that is a quick look at the top 10 cards from the Scarlet and Violet era. Currently, Pikachu holding the #1 spot, Greninja still in the top 2, holding that #2 spot, and Mew currently in #3. For me, if I'd be going for any of these cards from this list, it would have to be the Latias, and as well as some of the other Surging Sparks cards that are not even in this conversation, because they are still worth a relatively decent price around that $100 to $200 mark. And Surging Sparks is really expensive to buy a booster box, so I'd just rather buy the cards, because if you're going to buy a booster box and rip it open and get nothing, which is what has happened to me several times, you'd rather just buy the card at this point. I've had enough of opening Surging Sparks. This is a good time to actually pick up those cards. The Pikachu I would watch a little bit to see what's going on with. The Mew, I think, is also another one that I would pick up at this point, because I don't see it going down too much in the future. I think it's going to start to go back up again. And the Charizard from Paldean Fates also I would pick up at this point. Let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are on the top 10 currently of the Scarlet and Violet era. Of course, this list will change as time goes. It will also change probably before this video even drops. And we will be making another video later on in the year to see what that top 10 looks like and see if any of these cards move out or any new cards move in. And if you guys got this far in the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. You guys are the greatest. My name's TRV. We'll see you all next time.